Story 1. Mother-in-law tried to have our 8-month-old's ears pierced without permission. My head is spinning and I don't really know where to start. It's pretty much what the title says. I don't even know why I'm posting here. Maybe just to try and get some clarity and figure out what comes next. Background. My husband, 35 male, and I, 36 female, are parent of an 8-month-old daughter. From the moment we announced the pregnancy, we have had a difficult time with mother-in-law, 64 female, and boundaries. From trying to call my doctor to find out the gender when we wanted to keep it a surprise, to showing up at the hospital when we asked her not to announcing the birth on Facebook and posting pictures of our daughter without our permission, it's been tough. This isn't even her first grandchild, but the other 3 are boys and live with her older son's ex-wife on the other side of the country, so she only sees them about once a year. My getting pregnant also coincided with mother-in-law finalizing her divorced, second marriage, not my husband's father. So in a lot of ways, I know mother-in-law sees our daughter as her next big act. Our relationship has always been a little challenging, but I tried to be patient with her. From the start, we knew I'd be returning to work after the birth. I work from home, but in a demanding tech job. I have a lot of flexibility, but not enough to care for an infant and do my job, so we planned to hire a nanny. I'd be here all day too, so it seemed like the best of both worlds. When mother-in-law heard this, she made a huge fuss. She said we shouldn't pay for a stranger to provide care when she'd just be sitting at home, longing to grandmother the baby. I had some reservations, but we decided to give it a shot. It became clear right away that it wasn't going to work. Whenever the baby cried, mother-in-law brought her to me. I'm in and out of Zoom meetings, camera on all day, and I can't just drop everything to soothe the baby. She also called last minute at least once or twice a week to say she couldn't make it. Curtain shopping, lunch with a friend, headache, etc. After a month, my husband and I agreed we needed to hire a nanny. We broke the news to mother-in-law and told her she could still watch the baby from time to time, but that this would let her still have her life. However, she still harbors some hard feelings and occasionally makes comments about how we don't trust her. We've had a lot of other issues with her being really opinionated and difficult, but the one that's relevant here is that she wanted us to pierce the baby's ears. She says all the women in her family get their ears pierced as babies since they don't feel it, but this is not something I wanted to do. I think it should be our daughter's choice since it's a permanent body modification, but my biggest reason is that I got keloid scars when my own ears were pierced. They were garbanzo bean-sized growths that had to be surgically removed. We don't know yet if my daughter has the same tendency, and I will not risk it until we have a better understanding of how her body heals. Mother-in-law pushed the issue several times, but we always told her it was not going to happen, and I thought we were on the same page. The incident. My husband and I had 2 weeks off for Christmas. The nanny flew home to be with family, and we settled in to enjoy our first holiday as a family of 3. I also decided to take advantage of the break to schedule a colonoscopy I've been putting off. We asked mother-in-law to sit with our daughter since I was going to need a driver after the anesthesia, and the door-to-door time was going to be about 6 hours. I checked in, got dressed in my gown, and put my clothes, shoes, and phone in a string bag that they locked up. Everything went normally, and after I woke up from the procedure, they brought me my bag of belongings to get dressed. That's when I saw I'd missed 6 calls from our pediatrician. They'd only left messages asking us to call them as soon as possible, so I immediately freaked out. I was still really groggy, so my husband called them. Turns out, my mother-in-law had shown up with my daughter, without an appointment, and asked them to fit her in and pierce her ears. She had a permission form she'd downloaded from some mall piercing site that was signed, saying she was authorized to get my daughter's ears pierced. Fortunately, my pediatrician's office saw all sorts of red flags with this. They took a scan of the form and compared it with the documents they had on file with my signature. It was clearly not a match, so they told mother-in-law they could not proceed without a parent present. Apparently, she made a show of stomping her foot and trying to force the issue, but they stood firm. Thank heavens! I was in tears the whole way home. When we got there, my husband helped me in and scooped my daughter up and walked me into our bedroom without saying a word to mother-in-law. Then he went back downstairs and confronted her. I just held my daughter tightly to my chest and cried. I didn't hear much of the conversation, but apparently mother-in-law claimed it was supposed to be a Christmas surprise for us. She said she knew there wouldn't be any problem with scaring because our daughter's belly button was fine. She also said she'd gone to the pediatrician so we couldn't complain about hygiene. She genuinely didn't seem to think she'd done anything wrong and told my husband not to overreact since they didn't even pierce my daughter's ears. The aftermath. My husband told her to leave and she did in a huff. This was 2 days ago, and we haven't talked to her since, but she'd called dozens of times and texted long rambling messages that alternate between tortured apologies and long, woe is me, laments. Most recently, she texted us a Disney cruise advertisement and said she wants to make it right by taking us on a vacation to celebrate my daughter's first birthday and mentais. This will not be happening. My husband and I are on the same page. She will never be allowed to babysit again. Not only that, she will never be allowed to be alone with our daughter again. We're trying to decide if she needs a timeout where she can't see us either. I don't know what to do. I'm so angry I can't stop crying. Our pediatrician's office said we could press charges for the forgery on fraud and they'd support us, but that's scorched earth and I'm not sure it's the right move. I'm trying to get myself to a place where I can make a measured response, but I feel so violated and betrayed. I'm having a hard time envisioning a future where I ever want to be in the same room with her again. I don't even know where to go from here. I just feel incredibly angry, and I'm not sure what to do with all that energy. I can't imagine anyone else has gone through this exact scenario, but I'm open to hearing advice. Now for the comments. 100% you are doing the right thing. She knew you didn't want your daughter's ears pierced, and she waited until you were vulnerable and unable to say no, committed fraud, and attempted to go against your directly stated wishes. I'd go no contact for a very long time. She has no respect for your consent in regards to a permanent change to your child's body. She'll never respect your authority to decide what is best for your child. She is dangerous. There is no way I would let her around my kid ever again. I would never let her be unsupervised with my child again, and I would definitely need some time away. She does not respect you or your boundaries. At all. Everything else she's done up until this point has been quite egregious as well. I wouldn't press charges, because that process can be long, drawn out, and will keep you in some sort of contact with her. I would, however, 100% cut contact with her. Block her number, block her on social media, let mutuals know you're no longer on speaking terms with her, and you would appreciate if they would not speak to her about your family, and if she asks, just ask them to say they don't know. I would absolutely not be okay with ever having someone like that around my children. You cannot trust her, and she can't even take responsibility for what she did wrong. She doesn't even think what she tried to do is wrong because she didn't complete what she set out to do. Story 2. My 27 female future father-in-law, mid-60-ish male, keeps telling everyone my fiance, 33 male, needs to delay our marriage. Not sure how to address this. We got engaged on Christmas after 3.5 years of dating. We've been through quite a bit together and worked through everything that has come up, so I feel very confident about our communication and respect for each other. Everyone that we announced it to has been incredibly happy for us. I love his family so much that I insisted we let them know first, since we were about to physically see my family. My mother-in-law is thrilled and immediately takes her phone to father-in-law. This man has never liked me because I remind him of someone he dated, actual words to my partner, who made him unhappy. At the beginning of our relationship, he repeatedly encouraged leaving me. I figured he didn't know me well and things would get better with time. He's continued to be distant, but I was always told that was how he was in general, and stayed respectful. When the phone gets to father-in-law and my fiance shares the news, his face is visibly pissed. Both mom and partner encourage me to hold the ring up, and when I do, he is not happy, but clearly trying to hide it at this point. He says, "Isn't he a romantic?" When my mother-in-law asks if we've decided on a date, he decides to chime in with, "You need to wait at least 5 years." We all laughed. When we went to physically see them and the rest of their extended family, everyone was elated and asking the same thing. He continued to jump in over us and say, "At least 3-5 years." He continued to say it every time, and it became much less of a joke to me. I started getting my feelings hurt, and I got the vibe that he was politely stating that my fiance shouldn't tie himself to me. When I called my parents and mentioned it to them, they were very upset and agreed that his words were passive-aggressive. I want to discuss these feelings with my partner, but I wanted to sit with it a bit. I'm still not exactly sure how to word it, so I'm looking for help. Now for the comments. How does your fiance react to it? That will be the biggest tell of your future with him. I would gray rock the dad, but if your fiance isn't sticking up for you, then that's your life from now on, when visiting his parents. Yeah, I'm very curious what the fiance did or said in response to his father repeatedly saying they need to wait 3 to 5 years. Does the fiance just ignore it? Has he ever spoken with his father about the father's dislike for OP? This is pretty important context if OP wants people to be able to give advice. He was just ignoring it. I was sure he was continuing to take it as a joke because he always says his dad is kind of weird and unemotional about things. I believe when we discuss it, he will get where I'm coming from and ask him to stop. This will likely make father-in-law upset, but I am 100% positive that my partner will defend me. As for the general dislike, they have talked about it and basically agreed to disagree. It seems like the conversation went that he didn't care for me and felt my partner needed to keep looking, and my partner said that he had spent most of his 20s alone because he hadn't met anyone who fit him like I did. I know he sees his dad as very particular and stubborn, so I understand why it ended up like that. I don't know that either of us could ever change his mind about me, but he was firm that I was his person. Your fiancé needs to talk with his father. It's insane for him to hold against you that you remind him, father-in-law, of someone he dated. It's straight up bonkers and stupid and toxic. His opinion is irrelevant, but you don't want a jerk ruining your happiness. If he can't get it together, he needs to be sidelined. I said this when I heard it the first time too. Women aren't all the same person, and it's bizarre to judge me based on someone that he dated before I was born. But it is what it is there. We will definitely have a talk and I'll ask it to be addressed. Past that, I don't see myself engaging with him the way I used to. I always tried to be polite and chat with him regardless of past feelings, but knowing they haven't changed shows me he will always dislike me. It's probably not the true story, so don't get hung up on it. He doesn't like you and/or doesn't like you with his son, and some old date isn't the reason. He might not like your style, attitude at life, whatever. Can you live with it? Is your future husband giving you enough support that you will be able to tolerate this in future decades? This is fair, and I wouldn't put it past him. I have guessed there are several aspects about my personality and health that he doesn't care for. I believe I'm an emotionally strong person, and my partner absolutely adores me. He always tells me I'm his top priority and he'd do anything for me, and our relationship to this point has been solid. I believe we can get through it together, considering everyone else is supportive. This man has never liked me because I remind him of someone he dated, actual words to my partner, who made him unhappy. I gently caution you not to take that explanation at face value. Are you certain that explanation isn't a cover for racism or some other prejudice? Either way, I think the consensus that your fiancé needs to speak with his father is the correct one. He might consider leaning on your soon-to-be mother-in-law, since it sounds like she was happy for the two of you. His father's expressed justification suggests he has the emotional intelligence of a toddler, so he might benefit from a stern talking to from a female authority figure. I do have some suspicions. I think he dislikes that I don't make a lot of money. Fiancé has a great career, while I have some health issues that keep me from working full-time. Instead of going to college, I was taking care of a sick relative who left me quite a bit of money in her home. But I'll never pull in a lot, and maybe he sees this as my taking advantage. I grew up very poor, and my mom was disabled, so I believe he views my parents as trash, to be honest. In his relationship, they both work full-time, but she also does all cooking and cleaning, so I think he finds the idea of me mostly being home lazy. Mother-in-law will definitely take up for us if needed, but I don't want to force her into dealing with his bad mood. I've seen him berate her often, but I do think she could help get through. Story 3. My, 36 male, wife, 31 female. and I are having a tough time because of nevrotic brother-in-law, 35 male. I have just canceled the vacation in the middle of it because of totally unacceptable behavior from my brother-in-law, and now the intensity and reaction from my wife is on another level. So we are currently in the home country of my brother-in-law and his wife, 36 female, and their 3 small children. Me and my wife are here with our daughter in the same age range as the others, and we have only been here since Saturday. Every time since 5 years ago when I first started speaking to my wife, the brother has been there as an extremely critical, unfriendly person since day one. My wife and brother grew up with an alcoholized father and a mother trying her best to keep it together. That has led to some very painful moments, and to this day my wife has scares from an unstable upbringing. As well as the mom taking the lead, her brother was somehow also taking the lead and being a protective figure for her, trying to fill in the missing part of a functioning father. But it's hard to be a father when you are only 4 years older. However, this protection can have gone a little too far, and I have heard stories of the brother beating up boys being interested in her when they were younger and threatening others that came close to her. I understand his need to protect her and stand up to her that time, since the father was the opposite of the safety a father should be, but it already then was too much. So here we are, adults living our lives, but he still is very controlling of my wife, and every time we meet him, my wife's personality changes, and she suddenly acts like a little helpless girl in some way. I ask her regularly why she goes into that state without really getting an answer, and we have met many times during vacations. And always it is the same from him, questions and interrogations. Why are you not letting my wife do this? Why do you threat her like that? And to be fair and objective, I am giving my wife all her freedom, as of course, and I am in no way a bad husband to her. I love her, caress her, and support her in all ways. But every single time, her brother accuses me of anything. But that's not the worst. The worst part is his nevrotic, unpredictable behavior, which not only terrorizes my wife, but also his wife and kids. And yesterday, our daughter also got scared. And that was when I said, enough is enough. His son was hitting him with a toy, and he reacted with out-of-control anger, lifted the son up and screamed countless times while all the children were extremely scared of the situation, as well as his wife and my wife. I was furious, but I held my cool at the dinner table shortly after. When then dinner was done, I went to him one-on-one and said, "Your current outbreak, this was unacceptable, and you should have lowered yourself and disciplined your son in another way, not to upset the children who had nothing to do with this. I understand you must discipline your son, but this was way too much." Just then, shortly after, his wife and my wife came and confirmed that it was out of line, like they first dared to speak when I confronted him. Before that, they were scared silent. He so stares me deep in the eyes with no wish to compromise, enter dialogue or understanding. Instead, he full-on attacked me for trying to tell him how to discipline his child, and brought up all sorts of claims about me that he clearly had stored up in his heart over the years that had nothing to do with the current matter. Well, I stood my ground and threw away accusation after accusation. This was not the first time, and I only again now try to be around him for the sake of my wife wanting to be around family. But now I have to draw the line. My wife, daughter, and I went home to our vacation place, and my wife being sad, of course, as well as I was sad from the entire thing. I said to her, "It simply doesn't work. I can't let him behave like that in front of our daughter." While she was agreeing, she the next day, today, started to slowly switch over to a tone more of, he was just saying don't hit me to his son, and also accused me of wanting to see him suffer. Needless to say, I got extremely upset by this false accusation and angrily said, "What kind of pleasure can I ever have for not coming along with my brother-in-law and to see him mess up again?" No clear answer from my wife. She was very conflicted, but these untruths standing by her really just amped up the intensity for no reason. She, today, then went out to her brother and their family, while me and our daughter went out together in the park and so forth to play. We went home later, my daughter and I, and made dinner. Shortly after my wife came with her brother driving her, she said, "My brother wants to speak to you, but I know very well that he never has any intention of bringing peace or have fair dialogue, so I simply said, "No, I don't want to speak to him." But nonetheless, he came to the door and started where he left. I said, "If you don't go now, within 3 seconds I will call the police," not wanting to take any more part in this madness. He finished with that. My wife was very disappointed with me. I followed up with, "Yesterday, your wife told us she was living in this terror every day and that her parents were afraid of you," which she did say when she was running out the house after he had gone berserk at her for trying to dictate what to do. She simply had an opinion on where to take our kids to play. And then he left from the doormat. I have given this too many chances now. Throughout the vacations, I have already been naive enough to think that it somehow could work this time. It was enough for me now. As I said to my wife, "This man is unsafe and unstable, and I don't want him in any way near our daughter again." My wife, still very determined to be with her brother and his family yet again, accused me of not wanting to have peace and finding comfort in his misery. Regardless of her false accusations, I knew that we could not stay a minute longer in this area. I ordered tickets home for tomorrow, knowing that sadly some parties here could be hurt by not being together, but I could not accept this kind of behavior any longer. This man is terrorizing everyone around him, and everyone I see around him are frightened by his temper and unstable ways. But the issue here is not to deal with this man, because that is already dealt with. The problem is my wife being conflicted by this situation, and I know this is extremely difficult and painful for her. And for my part, I cannot tolerate her brother's behavior anymore. He just recently now also sent her a text saying, "I will poison myself," and such, making my wife even more anxious. I tell my wife, "Your brother is a psychopath and he is manipulating you emotionally." But again, it's her brother, and she would have defended him if he robbed a bank. Also, extremely difficult situation for me, and my biggest challenge is how to move forward. My wife feels like I am forcing her away from her family, while my intention is simply safety and stability and not nervousness and chaos. All her other family members I go along well with. Does anyone have any ideas here? I kind of feel like I just need to stand my ground, move forward and think about keeping our small family intact, and not let this thing conflict us further. But it is really difficult talking to my wife as I feel like she does not see things clearly and is very colored by him being her only brother. My wife is extremely easily affected by other voices, especially her brother, and despite my wife, daughter, and I having it great most of the time, this really takes a toll on us and drags our family life out in chaos. Thanks for reading. Now for the comments. You need to go to couples counseling so a neutral third party can convince your wife how bad the situation is. She is in denial, but a professional should be able to dissect her coping mechanisms. Good luck to all of you. Thanks. That's actually what I just told her some hours ago. Perhaps that could work. It sounds like your brother-in-law is just as abusive as their father was. I'd try couples counseling and a hard limit of you and your daughter are cutting him off. If your wife can't follow through, then know she's picking him over you and your daughter. He had a parental role in her life even though the age difference isn't that big, and it sounds like there's a trauma bond due to their unsettled childhood. They both need therapy. Thank you. Because of your message, I was inspired to write to my brother-in-law's wife surrounding this.
Thank you for listening. If you like the video, consider like and subscribe. If you want more stories like these, turn on your notification to receive the latest stories.